having a religion or spirituality gives you some swag, you look cool doing yoga on the beach.
Christianity has always wanted more swag. Okay, so the conversation is now officially veered into who is the worst person in the Book of Mormon. All right. We might as well just make a podcast out of this. I am your host, Cardinellis, with Brad Whitbeck, Kwaku L, and none other than the OG of Mormon apologia, Ara Norwood. And we were just talking before I pressed record as to who is the worst person in the Book of Mormon, and are there any modern parallels to said person or peoples? And if so, names. I want freaking names, people. So who wants to go first? Worst person in the Book of Mormon.
Worst person in the Book of Mormon. I mean,
and who are they like in the modern day?
The Gadianton robbers are the worst.
Okay, were they
Gadianton?
Or are they just the most famous that succeeded in finally ending it?
No, Gadianton was the worst.
Gadianton himself?
Okay, so why was Gadianton the worst?
Because he sent murderers to manipulate people. I
mean, because of his geopolitical success then?
You know I am not a fan of politicians in general, so I will always pick Gadianton to be the worst guy. But if we're speaking like socially speaking, like the most easy to identify with, I mean, it always ends up being between Korihor. I mean, I think Korihor's the go-to because he has the, I mean, they present his argument in the fullest.
I don't think he was the worst, though. I think he was just the saddest, the most tragic.
The most common today would be Korihor.
I think Nehor was worse than Korihor. Like, you have to be pretty bad to smite down an old guy who disagrees with you. Like,
oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
Yeah, like, and a guy
who's Gideon,
like,
right?
Yeah, like okay. Kind of a war hero who had like saved his people, and then he's like, "Yeah, you disagree with me? I'm gonna kill you." Like, that's a pretty bad dude.
Okay.
Out of the Antichrists, at least, I think there are worse people than Nehor, though.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with my favorite in 3rd Nephi chapter 3. I'm gonna go with however you pronounce his name, Gadianton. He's the Gadianton leader at the time. And when you read again his opening words, or well, really all of his words that are accounted for in his epistle to Laconius, the Nephite general, you find that we're dealing with an individual who sounds as if he's channeling Lucifer himself. I mean, this is a man who is thoroughly evil and who is attempting to seduce a military leader to not only lay down their arms and risk annihilation, but to lay down their arms and join them, embrace their dark secrets, their dark arts, etc. I don't think there's anyone more evil in the Book of Mormon than Gadianton.
Okay, now you said something interesting during the break between our before we started recording, that you think there are direct parallels between the widespread success of the Gadianton robbers in the Writ of Old, aka the Book of Mormon, and the modern widespread loss of faith and anti-Mormonism you see nowadays. What are the parallels? Like modern society and ancient society. Gadianton robbers being successful in ancient society. How is that? How it like? What are the parallels right now?
Well, you said you want names.
No, that's just what I say. I'm like, I want names. None of this. Like, well, I knew a guy once. I want his name.
But think about this for a minute. Who has a lot of power, and who has a lot of money, like billions, and uses that money to fund movements that are meant to...
George Soros, Bill Gates, top 10, Alex Jones, something's going on.
You were alluding to George Soros?
I absolutely
am. You went George Soros.
Went right there, yeah.
Woo!
We're about to get into jet fuel can't melt steel beams.
But, there's other people that we don't know about. I mean, how many people today in the church can quickly name who Gadianton is? There's a lot of people that fly under the radar, that we don't really know. In fact, right now I'm thinking of an individual whose name escapes me, so I can't even tell you who it is.
You know, I actually think the exact opposite of you, Ara.
Let's hear it.
I don't think there is a glamorous man behind the curtain, George Soros. I'm funding everything evil. You know, I don't think it is a centrally planned evil like the great melodramatic films are, like the great James Bond archetypes are. When you study pest control, as I have for so many years, you learn to fear widespread small infections far worse than large megafauna. I fear a bear or a cougar far less than I fear a truly unstoppable fungal infection. And I think the widespread men's hearts are failing them and death by a million paper cuts is harder to stop than one really big laceration or one really big wound. And so I think the widespread inactivity of Gen Xers, millennials, and prideful boomers that didn't raise their children properly, losing their faith because they were too lazy to convert their ancient and good 1920s and 30s and 40s gospel messages into the new internet generation's format. I think all of the amalgamation of all of those small losses is far worse than any evil character funding bad programs.
The question I would ask would be, is it an either or perhaps it could be a both and, that there is both happening with a simultaneity that is going to bring about some enormous.
That is a good word.
That was worth the podcast right there, dude. That was just amazing.
But
Wherefore and moreover, and here.
I see where you're coming from, though, because you see things like Jeffrey Epstein, who we had no idea about, like, just a few years ago. And then you see this, like...
Well, some of us had a very good idea. We were just called conspiracy theorists.
But, like you're saying, people who are maybe operating from the shadows, who are powerful people, who are making things happen,
You
right?
you use the word shadows, Epstein, we use Soros. We are getting every wait, let me just finish it off. Reptilian, Jewish laser, Atlantis,
Space laser.
No, Jewish space laser, which they should have called the Death Star of David. Like, oh my gosh, how'd they miss that?
No, I actually think I really like Greek paganism. Like Roman paganism.
Where are you going with
You
this?
trust me, I have a connection. Okay, it's important.
In the context of Epstein, how dare?
Wait. I really like it because I like I like a lot of the literature. I like the poetry, and there's a very beautiful way of writing. And I'm very angry that the Library of Alexandria was destroyed, and I'm angry that the Catholics destroyed so much of information from the ancient pagan world because they believe in archetypes and archetypes in their religion. And I think if there's a way you can read the Book of Mormon and study archetypes of these characters, because I think the Book of Mormon Antichrist for our day each represent a certain tribe or archetype of people. So if you take a Nehor, right? And I would take Nehor now to mean an ideology within Christianity, a perversion of Christianity prevalent in our church, the Catholic Church.
So name names. Are you saying Progmos? What are you saying?
Progmos
here?
be the version of the Nehors in our church, right?
Doing the priestcrafts.
The United Methodist Church split because of Nehor, quite literally, right?
That's
and then
true.
you take Korihor. Korihor, who you're really gonna make like Richard Dawkins is not the Korihor, no. Korihor now is an idea of all religion and mysticism is just silly things that you should discard and believe in nothing like me. It's that kind of lazy atheism is Korihor. I think the Book of Mormon characters represent archetypes of society now, and which is even worse because it means there's many of them. Behold, the enemy is combined, to quote the Doctrine and Covenants, right? But I don't really think you can. I mean, I would like to say John Dehlin is Korihor, but he's not really that cool. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's probably more so the Reddit atheism Like you literally Reddit atheism. I'm assuming that's a thing. That's Korihor.
I would actually put John DeLynn more in the camp of like Sherem's philosophies because he's less atheistic.
Well, but was Sherem making bank?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, because there is a profit incentive there.
Who's Kishkumen?
Yeah, who's
Kishkumen? Kishkumen was the guy who killed.
No, who is he now?
Oh, who's?
All I know, he is George Soros.
Yeah, Kishkumen was athletic, and unfortunately, most of the anti-Mormons now are actually ex-Mormons, and they're just these really boring Gen Xer white suburban dudes that are kind of slightly overweight. I realize saying this as a white dude who's a podcaster who's slightly overweight. Yeah,
but you're a millennial, so you're fine.
But, yeah, but I'm a millennial, you know. But it's like, yeah, Kishkumen was far too athletic. You know what I'm saying? Like,
there are definitely athletic apostates out there.
Yeah, but they're not podcasting and leading people astray.
I can't name one. It's like it's like the WNBA. Like, I know it's there, but can anyone in here name one WNBA player? One. You can't do it.
No. That Dwayne Wade's sister, right? No, one of the NBA players has a sister in the WNBA. That
you still can't say her name though.
You only know her because of the dude. That's what I'm saying. Like the NBA guy is the only.
For what it's worth, I like barely know any NBA players either. So there's that.
Well, you're Canadian. What are you into? Hockey?
Lacrosse, bro. It's our national sport. No, I'm just not into sports.
Okay, so anyway, back to Ara here. I'm going to rope you back in, Ara. You're saying, Gidgadonai. Who?
Gadianton.
Gadianton. Okay. So, do you see any modern Gadiantons, dog? If you say there's a parallelism between the end of the Nephite civilization and the end of our civilization, there's got to be a modern Gidga something.
Well, here's the thing. We know that he existed in the Book of Mormon. We can read his own words. Whether
with tapers.
Whether someone like him exists today, it's very likely that is the case. Probably many people are like that, but they don't usually going around laying their cards on the table so blatantly, and so it's a little bit hard to tell.
Okay, so then...
I think, not to put on the tinfoil hat, right? But
do you think they are laying their cards on the table?
I do. I think
we should just have tinfoil hats at this point.
One of the things that is blowing people's mind, and the reason why you have guys like A. Jones going on mainstream podcasts now, like Rogan,
who did
and
nothing
Schultz,
wrong
right?
and was totally right.
Well, here's the thing, when I was in middle school, I just knew him as like the weird guy ranting and yelling about like, it's like, okay, great. And then when we find out that our media has been dishonest to us, and everyone, Epstein was the thing that took conspiracy theories and made it mainstream, right?
Yeah.
Everyone I talk to now, okay, not everyone. I will ask people consistently at parties and get-togethers, what do you guys think of Gate? And they're like, oh yeah, that's real. Like total non-conspiracy theory. Ex-Mormons, Mormons. I mean, I'm in Utah. That's really all I've got. Evangelical friends, my friend who's a pastor, everyone goes, yeah, no, that's real. And I go, okay, so like, you just accept like one of the most wild conspiracy theories out there is mainstream and millions and millions of Americans just believe it, which shows me that ideas that were once seen as crazy are maybe not that crazy anymore. Now, I can't vouch for all of them, but what that means is if you accept the reality that Epstein had that island, that he had powerful people there, that he did have Bill Clinton there, that he did have a Prince Philip, was it Philip or
yeah, no, it was
Prince
Philip. Yeah,
Prince Philip there,
the ugly one.
That
Charles
he did have Dershowitz and those people that they were there, and they were actively.
Dershowitz said he wasn't.
I got a massage, but I don't like them. But he was there, right? Those people, and you know, okay, this was wacko, this was crazy, now it's true. That means the idea of people organizing something bad and leaving the cards on the table, that itself is a card that's on the table. And it made me and a lot of people go, well, I mean, yeah, ISIS does stuff like that. China, all these other leaders are, why is America the only one that's immune from having corrupt leaders? And then, really, conspiracy theorist just means you can theorize how someone would conspire to do evil. So now this has become very mainstream, and like rappers referencing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, just people just go, yeah, I don't trust the government and I believe in these conspiracy theories. To me, that makes me think, all right, let's look at the Book of Mormon and what is it telling us that leads to? Because just the realization that it's real, all right, cool. Yeah, wake up to the sense of your awful situation. I did. Great. What are you going to do about it? Like, that's kind of like where it points to.
Well, I got a question
and
for
they die.
you.
They lose because they don't actually do it enough, you know?
So you bring up a really interesting point here, Kwaku. You talk about the cyclical nature of the Book of Mormon being an illusion for real life, and that in real life, we have had such an institutional failure widespread throughout our society. And we have just stopped believing the news because we don't believe the news agencies. Many people have stopped believing their faith organizations because they've been loaded with scandals. Many people are believing pretty much any conspiracy theory out there because they don't believe their government is even telling them a shred of what is real or what is truth. That is inherently kind of like the downward slope of the pride cycle. But if you study the pride cycle, you know there eventually will be a bottom trough that is reached and then a dip upwards. So here's my question. If we're watching the pride cycle happen in real time here, do you think there is an upward trend on the horizon? Because my entire adult life, it's been all downhill. And that's been shown in the stats. Pew Research shows that for the first time, less than 50% of Americans identify as being religious. And we know that the Book of Mormon promises blessings in the United States and this land, or however you want to interpret that, as long as we are a people who follow God's commandments and, you know, basics like identifying as Christian, you know what I'm saying, might be one of those basics that ensure our benefits in this land. So my entire life, all of those stats have been in a downward trend. You know, do you see anything, Ara, Kwaku, or Brad, that makes you hopeful that an upward swing is coming, that maybe we might be coming out of a pride cycle and things will be getting better soon?
Yes, but not without something rather extreme or catastrophic taking place first, whether it be some sort of a pandemic that makes the recent one look like child's play by comparison, or a war, or a natural disaster of enormous import, whatever it might be, but it won't, I don't think it will happen just
So you
on
don't
its
think
own.
we've gone through enough hell? You don't think that the good pre-war people in the silent generation created good times, those good times created soft people, and those soft people created hard times, and we've kind of been through enough soft people
We're a very rebellious species. Human nature is such that it usually takes a very hard gut punch for us to really start to realize.
So you're like third Nephi, who was praying for a famine in the land so the people would turn back unto Christ and remember him.
Well, let's remember I'm being descriptive, not necessarily prescriptive, but yes, I think it's going to take
Just some bangers.
You've been knocking it out of the park all day with some great words, man.
it's gonna take some real pain before I think we start to see that upward trend in spirituality.
I see what you're saying, because like even from when I was really young and like we had 9/11, we saw this resurgence in turning back to God, right? And people actually...
Yeah, for like 2 weeks.
I think it was a little bit longer than 2 weeks, but you had like a little bit of a resurgence of people turning back to God. And I think catastrophes do that for people. I think there's something to be said for that.
I think I'm actually hopeful. I'm hopeful because, and again, I'm very pigeonholed. I'm speaking very much about like Gen Z. I'm hopeful because I'm seeing Gen Z reject atheism.
Really?
Big time. Because when I think of an atheist, I think of like a neckbeard. I think of a fedora. I think of an annoying person who's like, yeah, God's not like a weird, annoying internet person. You look at some of these huge social media influencers, and a lot and I mean like girls especially, like who are they get 60,000 likes because they have a great body and take a bikini picture on a beach, and like you look at what they're liking and sharing, and they have like all like this kind of spiritual stuff, like with hints of astrology and like poetry. It's like this weird new resurgence of like ancient paganism is what you're seeing, and it's becoming extremely popular. You have Justin Bieber making a gospel album.
Yeah, Kanye West. Yeah,
all these things I'm seeing that like the culture right now for Gen Z is rejecting atheism. And it's boring. They were raised by atheists, and they were like, "Ugh, no, thank you."
And all of their failures were on display, mostly because of that atheism.
They also realized that having a religion or spirituality gives you some swag. You look cool doing yoga on the beach.
Christianity has always wanted more swag.
Like you look cool. No, and I think it's timing in at the right moment where the churches that need to fall are falling. I'm just gonna say it, and people are like they do not trust journalists. They don't trust the government. It's an interesting new thing. It's like when memes started. Nobody knew what to call them, but you recognize that it was this thing. I don't think Gen Z is going to be like the millennials. I don't think so at all. And I think I'm not sure if we're going to see Christianity especially make a pop up, but we're going to see things pointed in that direction.
And I think you're onto something here, because I think that I have more hope for different generations and different groups within those generations than I do for others. Because I think
I want names.
Well, like you're saying, there's a really strong grouping within Gen Z who like prioritizes taking care of themselves and ends up becoming more spiritual out of those sorts of things.
Manifesting is a big one. It's all that Manifest Monday stuff.
And they like pull into something positive because of that. I feel like there's a downward trend that's going to continue out of people who are focused on like the you revolution sort of stuff.
Yeah,
that's obsessed about selfishness.
Okay.
I think the more selfish, which is ironic because some of the Gen Z stuff is selfish, but in a different way. It's really interesting to see how it plays out. But I think when we look at groups that get more selfish, the more selfish they are, the more hopeless it becomes. The more selfless things are, the more hopeful it can be.
You're telling me that my generation, the generation raised by atheistic divorced parents who didn't have any money because the economy sucked in all the wars,
and
don't want to repeat those footsteps? What? You're telling me that we're going, yeah, no thanks, actually. I'll go have fun with tarot cards. You do whatever you want to do. Like, that's what's happening. And it's honestly, it's better. It's better than like when you're a kid and you saw the buildings hit, the planes hit the World Trade Center, you went, oh my goodness. And the parents were just like, yeah, that sucks. There's no God and I'm unhappy. I'm going to divorce my wife. What's Ashley Madison doing? Like that. And it's like the kids were like, ugh, no, that's horrible. Like, it's terrible. So I don't know. I wonder if you're talking about like a horrible cataclysmic event. I wonder if it's almost a line of like 1,000 paper cuts of just like, maybe we don't have, China drops a nuke on us, but like 15 years of your life suck because your parents don't have any idea of spirituality
or maybe watching an entire obese generation. Like right now I'm actually on a health kick. I've lost 17 pounds. I'm really proud about that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm doing the whole intermittent fasting thing. Look at my past videos. This was like double chin instead of triple chin. I mean, it was a triple chin instead of a double chin, right? But maybe looking at an entire generation of just people who have missed out on an extra decade of their life and didn't really enjoy their middle age like maybe their grandparents did because they were overweight and obese. What were those million paper cuts necessary to inspire the next generation to say, you know what? Whatever extra productivity I might have gotten out of eating fast food isn't worth it. I'm going to try and grow my own in the garden. Like I'm going to try and, do something
opinion that will get me canceled.
Okay, are you going to fat shame Lizzo again?
No, I'm not. I'm not. Church leaders, everyone talks about, how bad Instagram is, like how the pornification of our media. Mm-hmm. And I will. But
it's proven when people when girls. Let
me make my point. All right, and steal the thunder. Okay. The point is though, like. I do think there's a level of pornography present in our media that is evil and disgusting. That's wrong. However, all of these girls and boys showing off their bodies online and their bikinis and their gym stuff, yes, it's hoey. But you know what? Maybe that competitive You know what I'm saying? Hey, they're hot. You need to be hot too. Maybe that'll help our generation not get heart
Dude,
attacks
there
and
ha-
die.
there
You know
has
what I
been-
mean? Like,
But
Let me try and back up a little bit of what he says
Maybe.
before Apostle Brad starts going all high and mighty and clutching his religious pearls or his moral pearls.
okay, so guys, we are looking at one set of 1,000 paper cuts and trading it for another. Right? Like, we are gonna get rid of the problems of obesity and give ourselves the problems of comparing ourselves to others so much that we like give up on
but
life.
why is that bad? No, why is that bad? When you
There's a degree of it that's good. There's a degree of it that's good.
I forgot you're very moderate in all things, so I can't really. You know?
But you watch people who like compare themselves so much that they get lost and they don't know who they are anymore. And I
It's like got to do with me. Oh, look, I think if
Oh,
I
no,
wanna-
not you. But I want to bring it back to what Ara was saying earlier with boiling a frog, right? Those 1,000 paper cuts come in one at a time in a way that people don't notice, right?
Okay.
And so you have within these different generations, you have people experiencing these problems that they don't see, but their kids might see. Okay, that leads to that problem.
okay,
but then
But Brad, I'm
Yeah.
with Kwaku on this one. Studies have shown that, for example, I remember I was reading this in my social psychology book, and this blew my mind. I can't believe this wasn't amplified everywhere. But especially young women, when they have positive, good-looking images of females in their pop culture and all around, they oftentimes find ones that look like them that they feel can be that they can be attractive to. And when I was doing video content for many hair care and makeup companies, the stats showing that most women feel inadequate at applying their own makeup and or doing their own hair. But when taught, they actually feel more confident, okay, and they feel more willing to go out in public and assert themselves and do all these great, wonderful feminist things, right? Mm-hmm. You notice that there is a correlation between a society that actually lauds and not puts up on a pedestal, but rewards the cultivation of one's physical attractiveness.
Oh yeah, I'm on board with that.
And women having a higher self-worth because they are seen as Kwaku calls them, inspiring figures.
Look, good.
So I mean, I think it's one thing to pornify society, but at the same time, the prudishness of the Victorian era, it was just as destructive as the hypersexuality of the internet.
And that is not actually the part that I'm saying that we need to be careful of. I think you look at what we're doing with social media now, and you look at how much suicide rates are increasing and how much people's like ability to care for themselves.
So maybe
is
some rockin'
nosediving.
pecs with 100 push-ups a day might not.
Look, I think that what's the ancient saying from Cicero? It's big booty, big beauty. I think that's
100%.
No. Here's what. I agree with what you're saying a little bit, but I also think though, when in high school I did theater. All right, I did theater, and there was 2 years straight where I never got any roles I wanted, and I was like, dang, could I suck at this? And our director would come in like, you guys are all great. The auditions were so hard. They weren't. They knew who the leads were, and then who sucked and couldn't dance, right? And so I worked my butt off senior year because I was like, I want to get some parts and I want to do a good job. And I never really got like the one I really wanted. I go to California for a year right before I started BYU just to do like fun film stuff and theater and all that stuff. In my dorm, first week. Right on Saturday, I sign up for the first show they're doing at the school. I walk in. I'm the only freshman. I get a lead. They had no idea. I was all these people, graduate students I was up against. They gave me the part because I worked my ass off in high school because all I was doing was constantly comparing. And I think I think when you tell people if you compare yourself, you're going to hate yourself. I think that's the issue. You should compare yourself.
But I think you were comparing yourself in a healthy way, right? You were comparing yourself in a way that actually led you to build yourself up and become better.
Credit. It was probably a mixture of both.
But the proof's in the pudding.
We're still trying to figure out how a widespread Instagram model, dumb is good for society, as Quake just suggested.
No,
And it's not.
Absolutely.
There's a degree of it that's good, but it's the way that we have it right now is so.
We're still trying to figure out how
hedonistic,
these
guys.
Instagram
more
models are
favors
good.
than we realize. And look, I'll say my sisters are beautiful, beautiful girls. Okay, and you know what? When the movies they watched of all, like when they were younger, they always watched movies with Jada Pinkett Smith and Brandy and Gabrielle Union, 3 beautiful, beautiful black girls. If they were watching with stuff with Lizzo, you know what they would like. You know what I'm saying? If they were being taught, hey, this is what a beautiful black woman looks like, Jada Pinkett Smith, and they're going, oh, I should be in shape and look good. And now we're telling little black girls, this is a beautiful. You know what's gonna happen? It ain't gonna be pretty.
And to be clear, I'm not on the side of saying that we should glorify everything. Every imperfection is beautiful, right?
Yeah.
That's not my position. What I am saying is that we need to not ignore the dark side of what we're seeing with the things like with the good that we're seeing of like, okay, we do have a standard of beauty that we can actually obtain to, and it's obtainable to many. Yes, okay. We need to make sure.
I also though
aspire to.
I think the culprit for like self-hatred is not actually coming from social media. I think it's coming from the chemicals they put into our food, the high estrogen rate they're putting in men based on water and the sodas we drink and the food we eat. I think
and all the soy we consume and everything.
The serotonin reuptake inhibitors are pumping into children that make them emotionally imbalanced. I don't think them seeing, Jordan Hostler or whatever his name is actually gonna.
And I'm not saying it's the only thing, right? But there is a level of something wrong with the way our current social media is currently run.
Yeah, and it's
not healthy.
No,
it especially and uniquely hits girls very hard.
Mm-hmm.
More so than boys.
Well, to speak for women,
the stats show that it's the brutality of humans towards each other is far worse in the sphere amongst girls.
Sorry, I was speaking only on like Instagram, like model culture. I'm not talking.
No, I was just talking about the brutality of
like Twitter, YouTube comment sections.
Yeah,
horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I'm not defending that, but I don't know. I'm one of those people who thinks a little bit of competition is good. I do think a little bit of because also
that's true. That's because it is a little bit of competition is good.
Like so you think we should have more Instagram models in your feed? So if your wife ever picks up and knows there's some competition, so she better. Is that what you're suggesting there, Brad?
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm suggesting.
I'm suggesting
right?
When you talked about a couple of podcasts ago about choosing your hard, we don't. Our society is too dumb to actually pick the nice middle ground. And so you get one of the two. I would rather have
a society where everybody's going towards the ideal instead of everybody's trying to excuse.
But give it 10 to 15 more years and watch what it does to us.
We have a society full of ripped, sexy dudes.
Will we though? Watch what happens.
Not everybody can look like you, Brad.
Yeah, because I'm the ideal. No, give us 10 to 15 years and we will find whatever issue it is that this is pushing us towards because we're imbalanced, right? We need to make sure that we are finding a way to be balanced about this. Because if we are putting everything on a pedestal all the time, it's not healthy, right?
Well, at the rate we're going in 15 years, we're all going to be in camps. Because communism's gonna.
And by the way, I completely forgot what were we talking about at the beginning of this podcast?
We were talking about who the worst person in the Book of Mormon is.
Ours probably like
the
who are these
Instagram
guys?
models?
What do they do it? Like they completely are just derailing.
Yeah, I completely forgot where we went, but it was fun because somehow we tried to justify Instagram models and softcore social media pornography.
Which is not good.
As somehow beneficial for society. We've strayed very far from who is the worst person in the Book of Mormon. And we named names. And I'll be honest with you, it was underwhelming. I think it's. I think
this is a fun podcast.
Oh no, not the podcast wasn't underwhelming. I'm just saying, comparing the worst people of the Book of Mormon to anybody in the modern day was actually kind of underwhelming. And I think it's Death by a Million Paper Cuts, not any.
I think it's Archetypes.
You think it's Archetypes.
And you think it's more real people.
Yeah, he thinks it's George Soros, dude.
and here's why I think it's hard to compare people in the Book of Mormon to people who are alive right now is because their stories haven't ended. We're dealing with people who are continuing in their journeys of their lives. And who knows, some of the people who are in a position where they could come across as Sherem, maybe they have an experience later that brings them more to being like Alma the Younger, right?
You're spot on. You think about Zeezrom.
Hey, Aura's back. Now that we're not talking about Instagram, Mom.
You think about Zeezrom at a point in time, or Alma the Younger, or Alma the Elder at a point in time, and you realize that their final chapter had not been written yet, and that may be the case with some modern day analogs.
All right, cool. By the way,
now I want to ask, like, who do you think is going to be the cool, like, comeback king of anti-Mormonism?
What do you mean by the comeback?
Like
king?
they became an anti, and then becomes like the best missionary ever, and like.
Oh, who's the Alma the Younger?
Yeah, who could have the best?
I have my prediction.
Yeah.
You think it's gonna be John DeLynn?
No.
You
Sean
think it's gonna be
McCraney.
Zelf on the shelf?
I could see Sean
I
McCraney.
hope. I know he doesn't want to come back to
Wait,
the church.
who?
Sean McCraney. He was at one point one of the most You know who Sean McCraney is, I assume. One of the most popular anti-Mormon evangelical guys.
His show was Heart of the Matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's cool.
He-
he's like 1980s anti-Mormonism, right?
But he is cool. Like, I really like Sean McCraney. We have difference
He's a
of
good
beliefs,
dude.
but if he came back to the church, I think he would be like every LDS Living article's written about. Like, he would be like the touring dude. And he like wears like the leather jackets, and he cusses a little bit, and everyone would be like, "Yeah," like, you know what I mean? Like,
I don't
like
think
him.
you could. Being aware, I don't think your subconscious could allow you. Imagine the guilt if you actually truly believed that the church you fought for so long as successfully as he did, and how many people you led out of that. Like,
I mean,
imagine the wave of guilt.
You don't even have to imagine
you-
it. You can read about it in Alma 36.
Oh,
It's right there.
That would crush me.
No, imagine
That would crush me.
He would be the coolest dude if John DeLynn returned to the church and became like an apologist and like a pro-church guy, Orthodox. He would be an apostle. They would like all right, like, come on, right now, young men's presidency of the whole
No,
church.
he wouldn't.
It would be one of the most beautiful redemptive stories ever.
Well, no, a beautiful redemption story, sure, but I'm like, have you ever watched his podcast? They're super boring. They're worse than conference.
Well, because
It's like, I mean,
look, well, they're too long, and the Doctrine and Covenant says the Spirit quickeneth all things. You know what I'm saying? So once he gets the Spirit back, he'll be fine.
yeah, I was about to say, maybe if we locked him in a room with Uchtdorf for a while before Uchtdorf got stupid and started donating to the wrong people.
Oh,
but,
gosh.
you know, saying,
I do not agree with what he just said. I want to make that clear.
What the heck?
oh yeah, Raphael Warnock. It's one thing to be a Democrat, and it's another to go. Oh,
you
come on, brother.
Okay,
Come on.
but I think that, yeah, I think any of these people who are vocally against the church, especially ones with a following, were they to return, they would have a very big impact for good, right? Because they are talented. That's the reason that they have a following, right? They are doing something.
I'm still wanting Kate Kelly to come back.
And remember, you said it would crush you, and you think back to Alma the Younger. You mentioned Alma 36. It crushed him until he fastened onto the thought of the Son of God. And as soon as he realized there was redemptive power therein, all of that crushing was replaced with something very, very different. And he did come back and was one of the truly great heroes of righteousness in the Book of Mormon.
Wow, dude. Word of the podcast, analogs. I didn't know that you could actually say that is the same as many of today's analogs, and I will strive to use that word tomorrow in a podcast.
I'm trying to think of a cool word I can throw in now, like a
dissertation. I don't know.
wherefore.
Wherefore,
There you go. There you go.
Wherefore, we will end this podcast.
Serendipity.
This was the serendipitous analog. This is horrible. This has been I'm Mormons. Bye.